When we went to the Hays County DA's office to look through the James Palermo criminal case file, we found a stack of other dash camera video. Turns out, when his bosses started investigating his prior policing conduct, they found a pattern they could have caught long before.
On the ground. Dude, will you take me? On the ground. Out! On the ground. You can't take me.
When Corporal James Palermo walked through the doors of the San Marcos Police Department in July 2013, he didn't know it then, but his own department had dug up months of his dash camera recordings.
James, as a part of this, what we've been doing is we've been pulling all your pending cases at the Hays County District Attorney's Office.
That's San Marcos Police Commander Penny Dunn. She led the investigation into Palermo after the Alexis Alpha arrest. The arrest where Palermo threw the woman down on the ground on her face. Dunn reviewed 176 of Palermo's pending criminal cases.
As we've been going through those cases, you know what we have found? You like to file resisting arrest. And you file it really inordinately more than any other officer in this police department. And we find that a lot of these people get hurt. And the ones that do are the ones that push your buttons, that set off a trigger.
This interrogation video shows Palermo mostly sat and listened as she pointed out what she called a pattern of hitting people with charges they never committed.
How do you explain that?
As far as the resisting arrest charges, as we talked about when we talked here, during the arrest process, they attempt to get away from me, flee, move away from me. That's where I felt it.
That's James Palermo's penal code. That's not the state of Texas penal code.
When I read it, I believe that force, whether it's force against me or force trying to get away from me, using some action to get away from me, that's what I believe is the case. I wrote that, that's the way I would write it in my narratives. It would be approved by the supervisors that way. Even when it got to the DA's office, I didn't hear any feedback from them saying, the DA guys, we talked. I didn't hear any feedback, okay, well, this is kind of this or that, or you know, that doesn't really fit or whatever. I never, there was no feedback saying, I read the...
So this isn't your fault? This is someone else's fault?
That my perception was the force, when it just says force, I believe
it doesn't just say force, it says force against a peace officer. You
Never
misread obstruction, you misread interfering, and you misread resisting arrest. You are a 13-year veteran police officer of the rank of corporal, which is many times an acting supervisor in this police department. And you don't understand the basic elements of 3 statutes in our penal code. James, what I said was you're not going to deflect anything away from you. You are fully responsible. And even though you do not want to be accountable for your actions, and you have not wanted to be accountable in the past for your actions, this is a situation that you're going to be held accountable for.
James Palermo was ultimately charged with aggravated assault by a public servant in the Alexis Alpha case, but he was never charged with a crime in any of those other dash camera video stops. Now, Palermo made a deal with the Hays County DA's office. He would exchange his police license for time on probation, but he would never spend a day behind bars.
Okay. You can't take me.
This was the last time San Marcos Police Corporal James Palermo would ever make an arrest. Back in 2013, the 13-year police veteran arrested a Texas State University student who walked in front of his car during this traffic stop. What started as a lecture ended in charges of public intox and felony resisting arrest.
Okay? I told you to put your hands behind your back. Come on. Hands are on the ground. Come on. Stand up.
The video shows Palermo slam the woman's face into the concrete so hard it broke 2 of her teeth and gave her a concussion. This wasn't the first time Palermo was accused of using too much force.
Dude, will you take me? On the ground. Out! On the ground.
Just 2 months before the Texas State student's arrest, Tyler First found himself face-to-face with Corporal Palermo. First was already cuffed by another officer on a charge of criminal trespassing.
Had this been caught on my case, it would have saved her literally being injured.
The arresting officer asked Palermo for help.
On the ground.
Dashcam video shows Palermo did exactly that.
I got a taser. I got a taser.
No!
Taser! So you will be tased.
Which he then did off camera.
I told you not to move. I told you not to move. And you did move.
I was in custody. All he needed to do was just put me in a squad car and take me to jail. I honestly have no idea what his motive was. I guess he was just having a bad day or just doesn't like his job or something.
Investigators found this dashcam video while digging into other arrests Palermo made in the months before the Alexis Alpha assault. But prosecutors never charged Palermo in Tyler First's case. In the case where he slammed the young woman, he was indicted on a charge of aggravated assault by a public official. Palermo faced between 5 years and life in prison.
My initial impression when I watched that video was actually very shocking.
Prosecutor Brian Erskine says trying Palermo in Hays County, where jurors would likely sympathize with a police officer, could have ended in an acquittal, meaning Palermo would be back to policing the streets. So the DA's office offered him a deal to avoid prison: surrender his police license.
And that bargaining chip is a huge piece. It says you can no longer be that person. You will no longer be an authoritative person in a position to ever cause somebody harm like that again.
Deals like that happen a lot in Texas. Our 5-year analysis of nearly 300 criminally accused officers across the state who gave up their police license shows just 11 went to prison. In fact, the majority, 245, were able to leverage their license for a lesser sentence. And more than half of those cases were felony charges. Some avoided prosecution altogether. In Texas, you most always need a conviction or a plea deal to take an officer's police license. But other states allow their police licensing boards to make that decision. Legally, TCOL cannot do that here in Texas. So we turned to a 2015 study to see what that distinction might mean. That year, 93 licenses were pulled in Texas. The states with the most licenses pulled were Georgia and Florida. Both have far fewer police as a whole compared to Texas. But they also took a lot more licenses from officers, 562 and 399. Their licensing boards have that power, and experts like St. Louis University law professor Roger Goldman say Texas's conviction hurdle is the reason its figure is so much lower. He spent 40 years researching decertifications in all 50 states and says the numbers in Texas would surge if Texas lawmakers allowed TCOL to strip police licenses.
There's no doubt in my mind that if you expanded the grounds for which you can lose a license, and particularly the commission of an act like perjury, sexual offenses, those sorts of things, you would have many, many more than 69 decertifications.
I'm an attorney, and if I commit malpractice, I have to pay the consequences of that. I can't just turn in my law license and, get away scot-free.
Does it appear that there is a two-tier system of justice here, one for police officers and one for everybody else?
Yes, absolutely. You and I, if we commit, these same crimes, we aren't able to get away with them just like these officers are.
Our investigation got the attention of Texas House Criminal Jurisprudence Committee member, Representative Jessica Gonzalez. Her staff took a look at our research and is already pulling records from TCOL on what we uncovered.